Up.
Raise your hands.
Everybody, okay? Who are you? Where you from?
I'm from Lima, Peru.
Yeah.
Two questions. First.
Good fish.
Thank you. Thank you. Two questions. You told that the group is trying to change from the most traditional marketing to the digital marketing.
Yeah.
Is Truffle Pig the first example of that?
The first example?
Yeah.
No, there have been thousands of examples. Where have you been? Stuck in Lima? No. 37% of our business is digital, so we have revenues of $23 billion if you include associates, and there's $76 billion of billing. So if you take about 37% of that is in digital already. So we're well on the road. The target is for it to be about 40 to 45% of our business, so roughly half of our business. So no, this is just a small demonstration. I mean, you can go back on the content side to our first investment was in Harvey Weinstein's film fund. We then went into media rights capital, which did House of Cards and Borat and Bruno and Ted 2. We went to Full Screen with Peter Cherniz, 100 YouTube channels. Vice.com with Shane Smith, and we own about 9.5% of Vice, and you have Fox in there, you have Disney in there, and you have the production deal with Time Warner. Then we have indigenous media with the Avnet Brothers, Refinery 29, Truffle Pig, Alex the Kid in music this week. So there are, and this spans a number of years. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's been there for a long time. One thing I would say is that we haven't moved fast enough. With the benefit of 2020 hindsight, I'd like to move even faster.
How important is Latin America for the group?
Latin America is about 10%, just under 10% of our revenues. It's very important. Brazil's the biggest market. Bit challenged at the moment, but by general economic conditions. Second biggest market is Argentina. Obviously, also a bit challenged at the moment, but very important. Then Mexico. Also, under the new president there for the last couple of years, Mexico has been not growing as fast as we'd like, but we think there's massive potential, and we're very bullish on Mexico, doing a lot of very important work there with major companies there. And then, of course, countries like Colombia and Peru, which have been very strong. The rise, the fall in the oil price, the rise in the oil price helped those economies. The fall did not help it. There are problem economies like Venezuela, and to some extent Argentina, but generally Latin America, I mean the new markets of Asia, Latin America, Africa and the Middle East, and Central and Eastern Europe are already 31%, almost a third of our business, and we have market leadership positions in all of those markets actually. So they're very important, and Latin America will continue to be. I happen to think this is the decade of Latin America. Some of recent events have not helped that thesis, that approach, but I still believe, and we've gone past the comment that John Gunter made in his book Inside Latin America, which I read for the first time when I went to Rio for the first time in 1969, which is, Latin America almost always promised, but never delivered. So I think we've gone past that stage, but it's very important. Yeah. Over here, lady. Sorry, this lady and then that lady. Okay, fine.
Okay. Hi, my name is Hitomi Moriyama. I'm an editor of marketing magazine Senden Kaigi in Japan.
Right.
I have two questions. First, it has gone 2 years since Dentsu Aegis Network founded.
Yes.
Now Dentsu has still bought global agencies constantly and aggressively. How do you see that?
Well, I'm a little bit puzzled. I'm a little bit puzzled by Dentsu Aegis. If you look at the numbers, and we deconstruct the numbers as much as we possibly can, and there is some opacity in the numbers. But if you do the analysis of Dentsu Aegis since the Aegis acquisition, two things strike you. Firstly, Japanese profit margins of Dentsu have risen from about 20 to last time I looked at 23, 24%. and overseas profit margins have gone from 15 to 7.5%. So they've halved. So it appears that Dentsu Aegis is trying to increase market share and sacrifice margins. I don't think that is the right strategy, but that is their strategy. I think that will ultimately cause problems, but we shall see. I mean, our view is we should grow our business top line and bottom line and improve our margins. So it's a totally different approach. It's also an approach based on media, purely. The creative side of the business, the digital creative side of the business is not as important. It's media driven. We think more balanced groups. But the thing that I am surprised about is the collapse in the overseas margins. Now, I'm assuming our data is correct. That's it. You're nodding your head, agreeing, so it must be right.
Okay. Second question. Do you have any images or opinions about current Japanese market?
It remains tough. The 3 arrows or the 2 arrows with 1 to come. Prime Minister Abe's new economic policy has improved the position clearly from a currency point of view. The changes that we see in the industry are driven by currency, not yet by fundamental strategic change. Having said that, I had a meeting this morning with our colleagues from ADK, which is the 3rd largest agency group in Japan, where we own 23%, I think it is, of the equity there. And I would say that under new leadership at ADK, we are seeing, under Ueno-san's new leadership, we are seeing a major change in strategy with which we are fully in agreement with. And I think that might signal the impact of Prime Minister Abe's 3 areas. So maybe short term, it was a pure currency impact. Maybe we will start to see the structural changes that are needed. Having said that, Japan is arguably the 4th largest economy in the world. It will be the US, China, then Japan, the 3rd largest agency, so probably Germany coming up behind it. But Japan is really important, and gaijin companies like our own have found it very difficult to penetrate the Japanese market. And therefore, I think it's immensely important. So I think initially it looks like currency-driven changes that have made Japanese companies much more powerful. In the longer term, we may, certainly from my experience, we might be starting to see a little bit of change. Even Hakuhodo has started to look outside Japan. Okay, this lady here, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rosie, the editor of Ad News in Sydney. So in Sydney, Group M and Mediacom specifically are going through some significant kind of reputational issues after some misreporting.
I don't think it's Group M, actually, to be fair. I think it's more around what happened at Mediacom, but never mind.
Yep.
We get a little bit of accuracy into the Australian press.
We try our best.
Try harder is
it's also it's also a thing in the US at the moment. There's a big thing with media agencies and rebates and
but those are two different
they're separate issues, but they all feed into the reputation of media agencies.
First thing on the US, there is not a rebate market. There are no, I mean, certainly speaking for WPP, Group M, etc., there are no rebates. I can't speak for Havas and contracts that are published in Ad Age with imprecise wording, right? That was the explanation, but that's different. What happened in Australia was unacceptable, and we've taken the action necessary to do it. It's difficult, but actually the business is in good shape in Australia, in a market which, as you well know, is challenged.
It is a challenged market, and it's very competitive and knife
well,
fighting.
I wasn't referring to the competitive nature of it. I'm talking about economic growth.
Yes, yeah, it is. But I guess my question is around the reputational issue and whether that damage that has been done and has kind of spread across the market can be addressed, and how you continue to address that, because that specific issue was handled, but it still has a lasting
impact.
I mean,
I think you have to operate with transparency, and you have to be as open. And just on the question, whilst we're talking about transparency, if you as responsible members of the press could get our competitors to publish their billings figures, their revenue figures, and their net sales figures. That will be a start. Okay? So I don't feel I have to make any explanations to you about transparency when we're very transparent with those numbers and indeed other numbers. So I think a key is transparency. On the question of transparency, just make one observation. People focus on the agencies. There is the issue of transparency elsewhere. For example, you do not know how the Google algorithm works. You do not know how not you, I mean clients, for example. They do not know how the Facebook algorithm works. And in terms of profitability, agencies on average make somewhere between 10 and 15, 16, we make about 16% on our net sales. Last time I checked, Facebook and Google were making around 40 to 50%. And in fact, at the margin, probably closer to 90 or 100%. So I think the answer to your question is, it's important to be transparent. If you make a mistake, you correct it as rapidly as possible.
Christian Simon, RTL Hungary. I have one question. There are two new laws in Hungary connected to the ad market. Ad tax, media companies have to pay ad tax 5% of the revenue. And the other one, government banned the media agencies bonus, the AVB. So I think it's not, the second is not only a Hungarian question. So it similar can happen in the US. What do you think about these government steps?
Just say, rebates don't occur in the US, right? There is no rebate in the market. So the AVB, and we saw that here in France with the loi Sapin. And so the answer to your question is the market adjusts. So agency remuneration adjusts. If AVBs are banned, they adjust, and fees, no commissions, fees or commissions establish a different balance. But to be quite clear, there is no AVB in the US.
How can it affect the market in Hungary? What do you think?
Well, I think I don't know enough about the Hungarian market to be able to give you an expert view, to be honest. But if you look at what's happened in other markets, I think like in Greece as well, if I remember rightly, but certainly in France, the market is adjusted. Now, the more important question is if agencies can provide added value, they will survive and prosper. So the real issue for me is, our strategy is based on new markets. We were asked about new markets. On new media, we were asked about new media. On data and the application of technology. And lastly, what we call horizontality is we're getting our 188,000 people to work together in 111 countries. There are three other things that are really important in the context of the question about Australia and the context of the question about Hungary or America. Technology, so AtNexus and Xaxis, our programmatic platform, are good examples of that. Data, so our investment in Rentrack, in offline measurement, and Comscore in online measurement, together with Kantar, which is 25% of our business, $5 billion of revenue out of 20 billion, is important in that sense, and content. I mentioned all our content investments, but you've seen here at Cannes, Snapchat, with the Daily Mail, you've seen Alex the Kid, our involvement with Vice, those are all those are all examples of content development that we're in. So those three areas, the answer to your question in part is agencies being able to demonstrate that technologically, from a data point of view and from a content point of view, they can add value, they will be of value. If you become a commodity, you don't. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Rafael from Brazil, Propmark.
Yeah.
Two questions. Firstly, I would like to know what do you think about the Brazilian model of agencies, and because in Brazil there is no media companies.
Right.
And well,
it's unique. I think I can't think of any other country where that is the case. I have to say that what do I think of the Brazilian model? I think well of the Brazilian model. I mean, I like Brazil very much as a country, so I'm biased. It was a pity about the last World Cup, but I think we would all like to have seen Brazil do a little bit better. But having said that, the Brazilian model actually works. And I think it's a very good model. And it's enforced. It produces great creative work. I mean, we've had situations in the last few years where, for example, our agencies in Brazil, and we have very strong, with Young and Rubicam, Newcom, yet YNR is #1 agency, Ogilvy is the 2nd agency, JWT, J. Walter Thompson is I think #4 and #5, FBIZ, I mean we have leadership positions there, Gray, leadership positions in the market, we're about 25% of the market. And I have to say to you, I think the Brazilian model is a very good model. If we had it, I wouldn't object to having it in every country in the world, to be quite honest. And it produces very good programming, and it produces very good advertising, and very strong creative. And it gives us a little bit more flexibility, I think, to invest in the product. So I would be in favor of the model, actually. Very dominated by, obviously, Globo, but very strong and a very good advertising market, creative market, and media market.
Okay, and second, there is a rumor right now in Brazil that the WPP is trying to buy Grupo ABC.
You'd have to ask Nizam.
He said no.
Well, then Nizam never lies, so it must be true.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Hilda Nyman from Norway. WPP recently had to give up the base agency in Norway. Could you comment on the Norwegian market and in the Scandinavian in general?
Yeah.
Is it falling behind?
No, I would never say that Scandinavia or indeed Norway would fall behind. Scandinavia, I think, has always proven to be a tough market, and I'm talking about Norway and Sweden and Finland and Denmark principally. For multinational agencies. This is not peculiar to Norway, but taxation structures and maybe the nature of people in those countries, in dominant countries. Yeah.
Hi, Matthias from Product.com. Can you please comment on
From where?
Product.com.
Yeah, but where's that based?
We're based in Miami, and we inform about the US Hispanic market and Latin America.
Okay.
Can you please comment a little bit on the US Hispanic market, if you manage it differently than the rest of the US market? Yeah. And then if you could possibly comment on why Argentina beats Mexico when Mexico has a stronger economy.
Yeah. Yeah, you mean in terms of size for us?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well let me deal with that one first. I mean, there's a simple explanation. We have very strong businesses in Argentina and its history. I mean, if you went back many years ago, Argentina was one of the most important economies in the world. So a lot of it has to do with history, and we've been there for many, many years. But there's another reason. We invested in a company called Globant, again, 20% of a company called Globant, which is about $300 million of revenue. It's now on the US stock exchange. It's on the NASDAQ, if I remember rightly. It's got about $300 million of revenue. It's got a market cap now over $1 billion, so that's a significant part of it as well. Mexico, don't get me wrong, we think Mexico has tremendous promise, but I think we would say a little bit disappointed in the first couple of years of the new regime that we haven't seen more growth there. In terms of the US Hispanic community, we look at the US Hispanic community as being part of what one of our board members, Sol Trujillo, calls the new mainstream. So it includes Afro-Americans and includes Asian Americans. And of course the interesting thing is you take that as a group, the new mainstream, and you look at the population that is between 0 and 15 in the US, babies born in those segments are more than 50% of the population. So the new mainstream is not a minority, it's a majority, right? Or it will become so. You see that in politics. I mean, I do think that Obama and the Obama administration, one of the reasons they won 2 elections was they understood those fundamental changes, demographic changes taking place. The other interesting thing is that new mainstream, those 3 segments of it, and you can include other segments, the gay community, diversity in a more broader sense, those segments spend more time on the internet and on mobile. And their growth in their income and their growth in their wealth, not the absolute size, but the relative growth, is stronger. We think those segments are under-advertised and under-branded. And that in a world where everybody's integrating stuff, what tends to happen is those segments do not get enough time and attention. I know of one company, a major packaged goods company, I won't name it, where the CEO has said that all their growth in the US will come from the new mainstream. All their growth, incremental growth. So in a world where top line growth is challenged because GDP growth is not where we would like to see it, these segments, which are growing fast from a population point of view, from an income point of view, from a wealth point of view, from an internet, social media focus point of view, they become increasingly important, and I think it's increasingly important to focus on them. But I would say, you know, you're in a good business because logically, the expansion rate of Hispanic businesses, which we count in the new mainstream, will be greater. There is a tendency to make them, to sort of bring them into the general agency. I intuitively don't think that's a good idea, because I think they demand, even the Hispanic market, you know, I've heard people say the west of the US is very different to Texas, is very different to the East Coast, you know, Florida, Miami, etc. So I think it's more complex, but generally it's under-invested in. Yeah.
Last question.
Okay. Last one.
Okay. So this is Marva Karov. I'm from Turkey. We're proud to the leading tech blog. I also want to hear your comments on Turkish market, considering that, I mean, you have made some...
Welcome Prime Minister Cameron's efforts to get us a better deal, but on the assumption that he gets us, maybe he will get 1 or 2 concessions, which will help. I still think the British people will vote in the referendum to stay in. They will vote yes, because we now know that we will be voting yes if we want to stay in. Rather, you remember with Scotland, you had to vote no if you wanted to stay in, so which was a bit illogical to my point of view, and also is not great from a campaigning point of view. But I still think the pollsters in the UK are not in good odour because of the lack of accuracy last time round in the election. But on the basis of the polls we see, I think the electorate would vote to stay in. Paradoxically, just one other thing, I think the longer that it takes for the referendum to take place, the worse it is, because it creates more uncertainty. However, the longer it takes, probably the better it will be, because the Western European economy is improving. Italy is slightly better, Spain is certainly better, Germany is strong. Despite the Ukrainian situation, which clouds the numbers, Germany is strong. The one issue remains France. Maybe there are signs that France, and I'm a big believer in France, I think with 60 million people, you know, you can't be wrong in the long term in France, even if there are short-term problems. But I think the longer we wait paradoxically, the better it will be. But from an uncertainty point of view, let's try and get it over quickly. And I think when it comes to the vote, people will vote to stay in, but it is a risk, and it does cause uncertainty, and it does cause problems. Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you.